Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to answer a couple questions I've been getting about the side trim moldings, emblems, things like that. How to remove them, when you can remove them safely, and that sort of thing. Alright, so I've been getting a few questions about removing side body moldings. When it's safe to do it, if you can do it without disturbing the paint underneath, what to expect when you take those moldings off. And generally, if you're wanting to remove the side moldings on a vehicle, just to kind of clean up the look of it, you just don't want the moldings on there anymore. What's underneath could depend on a few different things. If it's an older vehicle, the paint could be a little sunbaked where it would be discolored. For example, this 2006 300, if you can see that there, the paint would match up pretty well, but there's a pretty hard line from all the years of washing and everything next to it. So to start with, what I usually use to pull moldings off, this is from the plumbing department at Home Depot. It's used to cut PVC pipe. So it's about $5 or so. It's usually in the plumbing tools area at Home Depot, Lowe's. Works great for removing emblems, trim, all that sort of thing. From there, to get the rest of the sticky tape off, any kind of goop, we do a rubber erase wheel on a drill. It'll usually leave a little residue like this and just rubber eraser marks. It cleans off pretty well, but this is what it leaves you with, is the hard edge basically where all the dirt and grime was sitting. And if you've had a repaint on a vehicle, sometimes the factory paint will do it as well, like on this one. It will actually trap moisture. If you can see, there's a rubber sticky tape here and one up here to hold the molding on. So in between there was nothing, and it traps moisture in there. So that will make the paint bubble. So if you want to paint over this, you usually have to sand it, shoot some primer in there, something to that effect to fill in the little chip marks from where the paint bubbled. All right, so over here, I've sanded this with 180 because I'm gonna shoot some primer over this, because also we had a nice little dent that was over here on the edge of the molding, so it kept pulling our molding back. So we're just gonna shave this thing smooth, take all the moldings off, and we're gonna shoot some primer on this. The reason I sanded this right here, where all the little goopy tape lines are from the molding, basically when you go to paint, most of this will end up showing through. No matter how good you sand it, it just tends to show through unless you shoot primer or sealer over it to cover it up. So to kind of show you an example of that, so this car originally had pinstripes since new up until pretty much now, basically, where they're faded off, gone, we're getting rid of them. But I sanded this panel with, I think, 400 just to kind of knock it down, and you can still see the pinstripe lines underneath it. And that will also show through in your paint as well. So that's why usually when you're prepping one of these, you can't really paint over pinstripes. You have to at least have a sealer or a primer underneath, which I have a few little dimple dings and that sort of thing in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot primer on this anyways, just to fill all that in. But that's just something to be aware of when you're going to paint a vehicle. Those pinstripe lines, hard tape edges, that sort of thing can definitely be issues later on in the finished product. Also, a little off topic here, but I ended up getting the later gen style headlights for the 300 to go back with our stock front bumper for now. So a little off topic, but kind of related while we're talking about paint and body work. This is the topper shelf for OBS Bronco. So when they put these together from factory, they're usually in sections. So as you can see in here, all my fiberglass hairs I actually put some panel bond in there first and put the fiberglass hairs over the top to kind of smooth it out. When they put these together back then, their fit and finish wasn't that great. So this rear section area that kind of goes all around the back would actually be a little bit offset to the topper. It'd stick out a little more on one side than the other. So what we're doing here is we're filling in that seam. We had to do some repairs on the corners where we had some cracks or thin spots, something going on here. So we ended up redoing some fiberglass there, doing our fiber hairs, and then putting a little glazing putty over it to fill in the little spots, as you can see, because usually the fiber hairs don't smooth out that well. They usually have little chunks taken out of them. So we are prepping this thing for primer as well. But we're going ahead and smoothing out all the body lines, making sure everything's smooth and lines up nice, because we don't want those weird kickouts. And two, when you get these little gaps in here like it had before, you tend to have paint lifting, chipping, peeling, that sort of thing. And that tends to be an issue, because you don't want your fresh paint job getting a little water behind it and then peeling off in big paint sections. Could be pretty bad. In other news, our Duramax up there, we finally got that thing sorted out and it's running great again. So to summarize, if your car is newer, hasn't really been painted, or it's been in the garage most of its life, then you'll probably be pretty safe removing the plastic moldings on the side without having too many issues underneath. But if your car's been painted, it's been out in the sun a lot, if it's older, expect some issues when you go to take that off, of, you know, paint underneath bubbling, being faded a different color. You know, it might not exactly look right. So that's just something to think about before you tackle a job like this. Just kind of know what you're working with, and that'll kind of give you a general idea of what to expect underneath, because that's where the issue will come in.